So this comes completely from my own head, obviously. It's not going to come from anybody else's brain. That would be weird. But after the most recent episode of Monday Night Raw, as my throat tries to go away to a different planet, I do actually think all my WrestleMania predictions are wrong, and maybe the worst thing ever is about to happen. Because yes, I thought Raw was perfectly fine. It was perfectly a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We're heading towards the Elimination Chamber. We just need to get some stuff done. Then I'm sure all the fireworks will start at that pay-per-view premium live event, and of course on the road to WrestleMania. But I assumed that it was going to be AJ Styles versus Logan Paul at WrestleMania. Just throw it out there, again, just from what I'm seeing on the TV. Obviously, Logan Paul threw AJ Styles out of the Royal Rumble, and I presumed that that's a nice way to set that up. And let's face it, it could still be the way. Something that WWE does enjoy, the new WWE, and I like it too, is that they will move things into a position and then they'll veer away for it. For example, something we're going to talk about later based on all of this, Cody Rhodes and CM Punk had a massive promo off before the Royal Rumble, and now they haven't really had much of a conversation. Now, of course, that's because CM Punk wanted to win that and maybe face Cody Rhodes, but I do think that Triple H, I guess, for a lack of a better person, I mean, I'm sure he has help from other individuals, but I do think he enjoys sort of, lining ducks up in a row, and then we'll get to duck A, duck B, duck B, duck C down the line, because he understands that professional wrestling never stops, which is a crazy concept when you think about it. But given that AJ Styles beat Dominic Mysterio yesterday, and then Bron Breakker came out, he was going to spear AJ, which is quite the statement of intent. Obviously, Dominic gets out the way, not Dominic, AJ gets out the way, Dom takes the spear, then Bron Breakker freaks out, he gets half naked as you would do, throws the t-shirt at AJ Styles, who caught it cool as a cucumber, which was the best thing ever, and then they basically faced off against each other. Now again, the Elimination Chamber is next week, so there is every chance either in the week on social media or on SmackDown or on Raw next week, they actually go with doing Bron Breakker and AJ Styles for the Intercontinental Championship at the Chamber. That would rule, that would be awesome, and then of course you can get back to all these other things. But if we are not doing AJ Styles versus Logan Paul, and again, there's not even a hint of that at the moment, but that could be because WWE wants to get through the Chamber. So I'm the first to hold my hands up and go, me and my stupid bald head could be getting ahead of ourselves here. All of a sudden, Logan Paul becomes the outlier, not only in that Elimination Chamber match, but for WrestleMania. Who the flub does he face? Because there aren't that many options. Then you have to start to think to yourself, well, why would WWE have put him in the Chamber to begin with if that wasn't part of his WrestleMania plans? Because again, I think I said this on the Royal Rumble video, maybe AJ Styles could continue on his Hater of the Year campaign into a brand new 12-month period, because he could do what he did to LA Knight, which was last year? It must have been, whenever the flub it was. But that just would feel so random at the moment. I am starting to think that CM Punk is going to win the Chamber. Night 2 could be CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes for the WWE title, which would be a huge match. That means Saturday night can be Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins in the main event, because everybody is clambering for that one-on-one. But it would also mean that John Cena, I'm going to close my eyes when I say this, just in case it helps at all, would get eliminated from the Elimination Chamber by Logan Paul, kapow, and we do that match at WrestleMania 41. Now listen, whatever WWE wants to do is totally fine, we'll all move past it. But given that it is John Cena's last WrestleMania, I don't know how I feel about that, and I guess it's a difficult situation to be in, because I can actually see it from both sides. The reason I like Cody Rhodes versus John Cena so much, not only because it's one of the biggest matches you can do, although to be fair, CM Punk is a more than worthy alternative to that, it still holds up. But there is a really interesting narrative in Cody being the guy to beat John Cena at WrestleMania. John Cena doesn't reach his 17th world title win. He then fights all the way through the year, and eventually he gets to December. We make a pay-per-view for him. We'll call it John Cena's fun party time in your pants. Don't ever say that again. He wins a championship and he retires. Again, I've said this on most of my videos. While the tradition is to give back to the business, we've seen it happen with Sting. I'm sure there's other people I'm not thinking of right now. I don't want to see John Cena lose in his final match. There's no one really that could beat him that I actually think would get any worth from it. I think actually just going to piss a bunch of people off and make them sad for real, as opposed to sad within wrestling terms. So give him his send-off. Let him retire as the champion. He is one of the best, if not the best of all time, depending on what your metrics for such a statement are. It made me feel warm and fuzzy in my tum-tum. At my stage of my life, that's way more important than, oh man, we got to give somebody some heat. We got enough heat in WWE, and most wrestling, we don't need it. And that would just mean that coming out of WrestleMania, again, Cody's in a super interesting position, John Cena's in a super whooper interesting position, and we got to do the Cody versus John Cena singles one-on-one match. However, if you walked in here right now, or maybe if you walked into a WWE creative, and you kind of took some of the elements of what I just said and goes, do we want John Cena to lose at WrestleMania? Isn't WrestleMania meant to be like the happy time dance fest of the year? And also it is John Cena's last WrestleMania. Do we really want him to be defeated on that? that, I think you could make a good argument. When you do go through the roster and people that are going to be available and people that are going to be beaten, that's Logan Paul. Like, it just is. There is no way, I say through gritted teeth and crossing my fingers, that Logan Paul would beat John Cena on his last WrestleMania. And just to double down on that point, totally understand WWE officials who quite clearly have John Cena on a pedestal, which is where he should be, would be like, he cannot lose. We don't want him to lose there because we still have, that's April, so May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. We still have 8 months to tell the other story. We can have the best of both worlds here. So if you are someone that has spent hundreds of dollars to go to Vegas, to go to both nights of WrestleMania, to stay in a hotel and do who knows what else, and you just want to see one of your favorites win, that's what WWE should always be. There to entertain you, there to satisfy you, and ultimately for the good guy to win and the bad guy to lose. So I'm not saying that it's totally bizarre. I'm not saying it's 2 + 2 = potato or anything like that. I do think Cody versus John Cena is way more interesting, especially for nerd fans like myself. But it's just the fact that John Cena's last ever WrestleMania match would be against Logan Paul. And listen, they must have a relationship because John Cena has been on the explosive, whatever the hell Logan Paul's podcast is called. I don't think he would do that if he had any sort of personal issue with him, whatever the flub that means. But you know what I'm saying. Maybe there's some people on the roster that would be politicking for a quote-unquote bigger match at WrestleMania. And then, yes, it does all of a sudden get rid of all these stupid triple threat match ideas that I've been pitching, which I was always a bit like, that's kind of funny for WWE, especially at WrestleMania. Not that they stay away from them, but it's usually for other belts. And when it comes to the World Heavyweight Championship, we know it's going to be a singles. And the WWE title being defended in a triple threat match kind of seemed a bit far-fetched, just because we said it before, WWE rarely does that at WrestleMania, and I could be wrong, but obviously we had Roman, Edge, and Daniel Bryan a few years ago, and before that we had WrestleMania 15, 16, whichever one it was, with the four-way. Obviously you had the one with Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and Chris Benoit. I don't think there's been many others though. The fact that I'm kind of staring off into the distance, and also in recent times especially, WWE has really doubled down on the singles match. Doesn't mean you can't do it. I think you can do anything at WrestleMania as long as you tell the correct story. For example, technically WrestleMania 31 turned into a triple threat match with the Seth Rollins cash-in, and everybody loved that. But I don't know, when all of a sudden this happened on Raw, and I thought, okay, let's say we do get through the Elimination Chamber without the Intercontinental title match being down, it's like an epiphany, right? It's like, boom, a light bulb went off in my head. That totally explains why Logan Paul would be in the chamber, because I don't think anybody believes that Logan Paul is going to win the Elimination Chamber. I think that would be the worst thing in the history of mankind, because either it means you're going to do Logan Paul versus Cody Rhodes on night 2 of WrestleMania. I don't want it. I just tell you straight up, I don't want that in my life. Or he's going to win it and we do it as a surprise, and then before we get to WrestleMania, he loses his magic power. I like it when we do that. If somebody wins the Money in the Bank briefcase, why would they ever, give that up? It's like some people have won the Royal Rumble in the past, and before they get to WrestleMania, Rey Mysterio did this. They're like, oh, I'll put it on the line. Why would you put it on the line? If we're going to take wrestling on the up or as a legitimate competition, that's the one thing you're aiming for, is the World Heavyweight Championship or the WWE title. You now have an opportunity and you give it away because somebody pissed you off a bit. That makes you an idiot, not the other person. So I guess, look, you could probably get away with doing it at Logan Paul because isn't it? I just don't like it, right? I think it's a way too convoluted way to get to WrestleMania, when at the moment, especially because we have super duper whooper stars, you can keep things simple. It really has overcome me now after that episode of Raw. And when I sat down and laid out the card, especially night 1, either being Jey Uso versus Gunther and Jey Uso winning, which would be, again, a wonderful moment for us all, or Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins, which we kind of did tease at the end of WrestleMania 40. Do not forget it was Seth Rollins in his Shield gear to once again distracted Roman with that costume, so he whacked him with the chair, allowing Cody to recover. And it is a match 10 years in the making, 11 years. I think 2014 is when we did the Shield breakup. So it's not like that doesn't have the gravitas. And again, CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes, I tell you as well, my friends, talking to the microphone like we're doing an ASMR video, I actually think CM Punk could win that. I know. Can you imagine if CM Punk finally gets his WrestleMania main event and he beats Cody Rhodes? I would even probably say he could go heel. In fact, I kind of think this. Let me lean on my beard, look off into the distance. I think there is a very good chance if you do CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes, that's when Paul Heyman calls in the favor. CM Punk calls in the favor from Paul Heyman. He screws over Cody Rhodes, and let's face it, Paul Heyman doesn't really like him either, given his bloodline connection. And then when you come out of WrestleMania, you can probably start building towards SummerSlam, which would be CM Punk versus Roman Reigns, and Roman being like, what are you doing, you absolute moron? You're meant to be bringing the title back to my family, not giving it to CM Punk. Now, that idea just popped into my brain, Zayn, and I'm now upset that, you know, I've already made the thumbnail for this, or my designer's made the thumbnail. Shout out to Elliot, I appreciate you, my friend. And we're going the Logan Paul, John Cena direction. I tell you now, small spoiler, I'm absolutely going to make a video soon, which is predicting CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes, and that exact scenario I just laid out. And I do think it's pretty good. And John Cena would beat Logan Paul, so it'd be totally fine. That's a better WrestleMania card than the ones that I've booked. Although I do want Randy Orton to be the guy to beat Cody Rhodes for the championship. But I guess you can still do that feud. That can be the pivot, right? CM Punk then goes into his feud with Roman Reigns, and Cody then gets tangled up with Randy Orton. And you can make a wonderful argument that that doesn't need a championship, because they're going to have so much, it's going to be dripping in personality and stories and reality that you can probably get away with not having that belt. But I'm convinced now I've said that, and I'll be wrong, because I'm always wrong. Go through my predictions, I'm rarely right. I don't know how I got this job. I have any kind of a platform. I should be thrown out of the window. But yeah, I think it is going to be Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns, CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes, and I think it will be John Cena versus Logan Paul. Still feels a bit drab, that one, though. When I said it out loud, I said John Cena deserves more than that. We'll have to wait and see. And again, if I am completely wrong, isn't it just wonderful that you can kind of have these three different cards and all of them are pretty good to a certain extent? I think so. And The Rock can even come back. I know, I think it's super unlikely. I think there's probably like a 1 in a million chance that he actually does do that, because I think he's just too busy. But that would only add more star power as well, which would be totally nuts. Otherwise, Raw as a whole, I loved Seth Rollins versus Finn Balor. Finn Balor, I really hope, has something for 2025. I can't even figure out where he fits on a WrestleMania card at the moment, unless we do something with Dominic Mysterio, which you could do and finally break up the Judgment Day. I wouldn't mind that at all. But he needs to be moved back into a position, maybe shifted over to SmackDown, where he can be having these bangers all of the time. Seth Rollins is just an underrated gem. He doesn't get what he deserves either, and I don't think he'll win the Chamber. Obviously, he's now going to the Chamber, but just a great TV main event. I don't know how long it was, 15, 18 minutes, but it was so watchable. It was so enjoyable, and more power to them, because I don't think anybody actually believed that Finn was going to win. That rhymes, so it must be true. But it was still an absolute roller coaster. So I think Michael Cole said 2 of the best in the world, and when he said that, I was like, is that true? And I'm like, you know what? They'd be up there for me. That's how good I think they are, depending on your style of wrestling that you fancy on that day. And that's why the best in the world will shift around all the time. Also, really enjoyed Roxanne Perez versus Raquel Rodriguez. I think Roxanne Perez has been main roster ready for ages, and she proved it here. This version of Raquel is way better, and we need to lean into this more. And I'm also very much enjoying, as dumb as it is, I'm very much enjoying the story between Bianca Belair, Naomi, Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez. Because Kathy Kelly talked to Liv and Raquel here. I was like, oh, we saw that footage from SmackDown. And like, big whoop, man. You saw us walking around backstage. What does that prove? I agree with them. I was like, yeah, Kathy, Nick Aldis. What does that prove? Nothing. And I think they're doing the tag title match next week, which Liv and Raquel absolutely should win. And then Bianca Belair and Naomi should fall out, because Naomi goes, haha, I did try and kill Jade Cargill, which will also be cool. Again, the detective work here is abysmal, but I do enjoy it. And I thought everything with Gunther and Jey Uso was tremendous. Gunther pretending to be Jay in his entrance and just ripping on these fans. I thought the whole "yo, you stink" was a bit dumb, but he can get away with anything, that guy. And then he stands up to Pat McAfee, which of course is going to appeal to that fan base too. He used the Zack Sabre Jr. line. I'm going to get it wrong, but like, that's like me trying to, perform Shakespeare in front of a dog. It's pointless, and that's why you don't understand me, because I'm above you. And the fact that Jey Uso then comes out and defends his people and fights Gunther off here. We got 2 months to WrestleMania, man, on one of these Raws. It could even take Jay off TV for a while. Gunther is going to bloody this man up, and it's going to be horrendous. I bet it's a little bit like The Rock versus Cody Rhodes before last year's WrestleMania. Somebody deserves that angle. I think you can get away with it once a year, probably a few times a year. So that will totally rule. This did totally rule. I love it. I love the feud. I can't believe, I don't like saying that, because everyone's allowed their opinion, but I'm mystified that some people don't think this is the right direction. I think it's truly tremendous. And we're doing Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn at the Elimination Chamber. Now, of course, this could be extended to WrestleMania in some guise, but I still think we're doing Kevin Owens versus Randy Orton at Mania, and Karrion Kross, anytime he's on TV, much like Raw, is Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn, like a dog whose owner is Sami Zayn, that's all he can say. But it's going to be an unsanctioned match. Now, I would imagine, again, what do I know? Nothing. But I can see a world where Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn sit down with Triple H. So now let's do it at the Chamber, because that's in Canada. And we've done it at WrestleMania before. There's other options for us on the table. And it's in a building, the Elimination Chamber, so arguably louder, because the sound will be better contained. You get better reverberations and things like that, which means you get a better atmosphere, a better environment. And once again, they're pretty damn proud of where they're from, as they should be. I think maybe they've looked at it and gone, if this is the last time, we'd rather do it there. And you could even put it, well, you can't put it in the main event because of the Elimination Chambers, but it's an unsanctioned match, right? Even if it ends in some kind of shenanigans, which it totally could do, I don't see how you come back with it at WrestleMania if you're not going to have the stipulation. Even if somehow you came up with a bizarre bizarre way to have it Randy versus Kevin versus Sammy, which isn't going to make any sense. I still don't think you can beat these two kicking the holy hell out of each other. It won't be, well, maybe it will be like this. I'm a bit scared, to be honest. But go back to their Ring of Honor matches from 2010. It wouldn't surprise me if they're going to bust a lot of that stuff out, because maybe the old WWE regime wouldn't have let them do it, but Triple H would have been aware of those matches, and they've all sat down and gone, this is it. This is the time. Let's draw a line under it, because maybe they know they've got too much other stuff for the next few years. But I think it'll be tremendous, and I think it'll be something we're talking about for ages. But I don't know. But again, it absolutely makes the thing interesting and intriguing, which is all I want. What do I care what show it's on, right? I guess, in front of 65,000 people at WrestleMania, and at WrestleMania, of course, adds extra weight to it. But if I'm sitting at home watching the Elimination Chamber and you got, 20,000 people? I don't know how many people go. Is it the Rogers Center? I can't remember. But how many people there's going to be going absolutely nuts? You're still going to get that same kind of a feeling, which is what it's all about. We talked about Bron Breakker and AJ Styles and Dominic Mysterio, all good. Carlito got hit in the penis and spat his apple out, which for some reason totally cracked me up, because I'm a weird old guy. In terms of criticisms, I don't like what we're doing with the Raw Tag Team title belts at the moment. I just think it's weird. It's not bad. I think the War Raiders are a terrific team. I think the Creeds are a terrific team. The story is just a bit drab compared to everything else we're doing. And very sadly, it's the same with the Women's Intercontinental title. I just feel like we should do more. Perfectly fine with Dakota Kai beating Ivy Nile, but that to me suggests that WWE doesn't really have a long-term plan, which is what they've been doing so well everywhere else, and that's why I think it stands out like a sore thumb. Because why have Ivy throw Lyra Valkyria out of the Royal Rumble? I'm sure they'll get to it eventually, but it's just, a standard narrative. That happens part A, part B is the match, and then part C, Dakota Kai could come back in afterwards. And do I think Dakota Kai is going to win? I don't know. Do I really care? I don't know. It's going to happen on next week's episode of Raw. Ivy Nile is probably going to interfere, and then we'll probably just do a triple threat match. All this is perfectly fine, and they're really, really good talents. Like, Lyra is great in the ring. Dakota Kai just has that certain something, and I think Ivy Nile hasn't really been given a chance to showcase what she does have. I think she's better than what we're getting to see on television. But that's exciting, because she is getting more opportunities at the moment. But it's the same with the US Championship, right? Naomi loses to Chelsea Green. Lyra Valkyria lost to whoever the flub she lost to last week. And I just think we need to start allowing those belts to feel important. It's like Seth Rollins talked about this when he became the world heavyweight champ. He's like, man, I got to do double the work of everybody else that has a belt right now, because this doesn't mean anything. It is just a trinket. It's the stories and the worth and the personality and the character that we put on the thing. Then all of a sudden we start to care, which is what Seth Rollins has done. Drew McIntyre did it. Damian Priest is doing it. And now Gunther and Jey Uso will win it. Then we'll be a couple of years down the line. We'll be like, not even thinking about when it was first born onto this earth. And I really do think we need to do the same with the IC and the US. I love what we're doing with the New Day, because they're just so entertaining. They found Jey Uso and just laughed at him. You're not going to win at WrestleMania. And he reminded them that it was essentially the Usos that allowed Kofi to get to Kofi Mania. But then they come out, and I love their shtick. I love Xavier Woods. I love Kofi Kingston. I think they're wonderful as heels. And them feuding with the LWO makes sense, because they have taken out Rey Mysterio. But I don't want it to become a SmackDown situation either, because I think what we're doing with those tag titles is a little bit hit and miss too. But you do have all of these teams, and they're kind of directionless, to use that word, because the LWO could be fine for the tag titles. I think the New Day should win the tag titles. You've got the War Raiders, you've got the Creeds. There's probably some other people I'm not even thinking about right now. Well, you've got Grayson Waller, Austin Theory, pretending they're going to break up, but they never do. So, I don't know. I need to wait and see with it, but I don't want to say it's uninspired. That's unfair. But if you're grading the whole thing on a curve, you've got some things, Jey Uso, Gunther, which is absolutely brilliant, and you've got these, you're like, well, I can be invested because I like the characters, but I also don't really know what we're going to do. And in terms of other things we ticked on Raw, the Judgment Day are, they're limited, or they're on their way out. Dominic wants to add a new member. I'm sure that'll be after Finn Balor leaves. I hope it's not Aleister Black. I don't mind if he goes into the Judgment Day. To me, the Judgment Day should just be disintegrated now, to use completely the wrong word. They served their purpose. They were super duper good, but everything comes to an end. Not everything needs to be the bloodline. And I think naturally they have come to a conclusion. I would like Aleister Black on his own, or I don't know, just do something else with him. But that's, again, I've just made that one up. Who the hell knows what he is doing? But yeah, sure. It certainly was one of those Raws where if you haven't seen it, you can catch up on social media, you can catch the clips. You should go out of your way to watch the main event, which is really, really, really good. But otherwise, I think hit and miss is fair. But the misses aren't bad misses. They're just sort of going to be more personal, depending on what you want to see from your wrestling. But I think the Elimination Chamber is going to be really good. I think Bianca Belair may win it now, as I close my eyes again for no reason. Or it could be Liv Morgan. But if Liv Morgan's going to win the tag team match, I would rather be focused on those women's tag team championships. Isn't that crazy? Out of the 3 sets of tag team belts, I'm more invested in the women's ones now than ever, but that's because we're telling good stories with them. I like the Jade Cargill stuff. It's totally bonkers, and it's totally over the top. I have a problem with that, man. It's pro wrestling. All of pro wrestling is over the top, and it's totally bonkers. So a decent episode of Raw, and I think maybe retroactively we're going to realize the impact it had on WrestleMania, and I will never stop laughing. Logan Paul versus John Cena, which a lot of people did predict at the end of last year, and it certainly was floating around. I just thought it was so ludicrous we wouldn't do it. But what did I say 45 seconds ago? What is wrestling? It's totally bonkers. File it in that cabinet. Now listen, none of this matters. What matters is your opinion, so please do drop me a comment below before you like the video, share the video, subscribe, click the notification bell, click the video on the screen, which is me talking about why everyone is so mad about WrestleMania 41. Maybe I predicted this before it happens. And as always, if you go to GorillaMind.com/Simon, use code Simon, you can not only get 10% off everything, but if you're into Gorilla Mode Base, which is their most basic pre-workout, which is awesome, you can get 30% off and for the rest of the week. I do benefit from this when you use that code, so it helps the channel, so I do appreciate it. Same at ProWrestlingTees.com/Simon Miller. Get your stupid wrestling shirts. This is my wrestling friends one, which is dirt on it. I just realized that's disgusting. What is wrong with me? On social media, Simon316. On TikTok, Simon J. Miller. And just on Cameo as well. And I appreciate doing all your Valentine's Days ones. That was a good time. But otherwise, keep enjoying wrestling, my friends. Maybe don't worry about the size of a wrestling ring when you're watching promotions, because it really doesn't matter. There are other things in life that we should be focusing our attention on. But I shall give you a salute. I shall send you my love, and I will talk to you soon.